Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted, the live call-in show that happens every Friday night at 7 p.m., where we want to hear from you and we want to know what you believe and why. Every single week here at Truth Wanted, we have a special guest, and I'm very excited because this week I have got another Canadian here, another Canadian invasion. I have Neil, the 604 Atheist, here with me. Hi, Neil.
Howdy,
How you
howdy.
doing?
I'm well. Yourself?
I'm very good. I'm really glad that you're here with me tonight. I was just
BC
reminiscing.
takeover.
Yeah, another Canadian takeover. We'll see where we can get with these calls. I don't know if we're going to be really nice, like have the Canadian vibes again, or if we're going to,
That depends on the
cut
caller.
people off a little more.
I've got my polite shoes on, so it's we'll see what happens.
Perfect. So if you're wanting to call in the show, we'd love to hear from you. Call in early so you can get enough time to chat with us. The phone number is 512-991-9242. Or if you're calling through your computer, you can go to tiny.cc/call TW. So get in those calls now because we want to talk to you. So Neil, what's new with you?
Well, in the past year, I think I've become addicted to collecting Lego. So I have like 40 odd Lego sets that I have yet to put together, but they're all sitting here getting ready while I, get some more room, and then I can build a gigantic Millennium Falcon and stuff like that. That thing cost me like $1,000, so it's huge.
I think Lego is still very underrated. Like people need to get back into Lego. I have a son and he's getting me back into Lego.
Is he? That's awesome.
Yeah. It's like
they're
so
saying
fun.
it's worth more than gold right now. So.
Oh really? Okay. So
oh yeah.
when he's done with it, I'll still hang on to it and see what I can get later.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I also was just thinking about when you and I had met. Neil, you have a channel on YouTube here called, and your show is called Deconversion Stories, and you had me on 2 years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago. Yeah. And I was just saying that it felt like it was 6 months ago because I can't believe it's been that long. I think it was kind of one of my first intros into the YouTube world. And then just last week and the week before, a whole new experience for me because you actually interviewed some family members of mine.
That's right. What I think is funny about that whole ordeal is you had no idea that they were out of it too.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, I recently had my sister-in-law actually contacted me a couple of weeks ago because she had gone through her whole process and kind of walked away from her own faith, and she was listening to some of the channels on that have atheist content, and she stumbled up across an interview of mine. And now her and I, we've had kind of times where we've hung out a lot, but we hadn't seen each other a lot over the last couple of years with COVID, and she ended up moving and she had another baby, and so we just kind of lost touch a little bit. But she had no idea that I was an atheist, and I had no idea that she was an atheist, and she definitely didn't know that I did stuff online and that I've been all over the place telling my story. So it was super exciting. And then I was really happy that I didn't, you reached out to her, but I was able to vouch for you and be like, yeah, you should totally go on Neil's channel. It's awesome. Yeah. So that was wild.
I reached out because you mentioned that she was your sister-in-law.
Yeah.
So I reached out and I said, hey, I already had your sister-in-law and it's time for you to come on the show. And then her mom was watching, and then she said, oh yeah, I'm an atheist now too. And I'm like, okay, you're coming on next.
I can't even put it into words how mind-blowing this is for me, having these people in particular in my life who were probably one of the most religious people in my family that I knew of. To see them now kind of going down the similar path where they've abandoned all these belief systems, and they're talking about it online. So that's pretty wild.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, these stories need to be shared, right? Because you never know. I mean, I think your sister-in-law mentioned that she had seen some of the content out there about, because when she was having doubts, she had gone on YouTube and looked up a bunch of stuff, and she saw a lot of the folks that we already know, Atheist Experience, Seth Andrews, that kind of thing, and that got the ball rolling, and then she just sort of eventually found her way out of there.
Yeah, and
So,
I love what
kudos.
you do on your channel, because like a lot of people will do counter apologetic stuff. We do call-ins, we talk to people, but I think one of the most important thing for people who are kind of going through that process early on is hearing the actual stories of people and what it was like for them when they were leaving. And you do all sorts, like it's not just Christianity, or like you listen to anybody's story, right? Like anybody
I
who's
have
away from it.
had even Hemet Meta, who was on for an
Yeah.
episode, and he was an ex-Jain, right? So I've had
Yeah.
ex-Buddhists, I've had ex-Jains, I've had ex-Muslims, ex-Jews, ex-Christians. I even had another lady who lives here in our province, who is an ex-guru in the world of woo,
Oh,
like
really?
pyramid power, crystal healing, that kind of garbage. And
Yeah.
and she came on and said, yeah, once I realized that all the stuff that I was just leading people on, scamming them almost like a charlatan. So, and I didn't
Wow.
feel good about that. So she got out of it.
That's fascinating. I'll have to go look for that one. I missed that one. Because yeah, it's like there's a lot of different avenues of people of life that people come from, and they would say that they walked away from some sort of like a lot of people will use the word fundamentalism or
Yeah.
extremism or just
Yeah.
superstition. Like they're walking away from these different kinds of belief systems, and for other people who are going through that, you can go to a channel like yours and find the people that match up kind of with your history, right?
Yeah.
And then listen to
Yeah.
them. And I think the thing you hear all the time is how interesting it is for people to hear stories that sound so much like their own, and feeling like they're not alone when they're going through these things.
There's definitely some similarities to the stories,
Yeah,
but
I bet.
one of the things I think is the oddest fact about hearing some of these stories is some people, they start having some doubts. They ask a few questions, and then just like that, they're like, screw this, I'm an atheist. And then you have people that take a long time to get out of it. Like, that they feel like they're getting out of it, and then, oh no, I got to go back and believe a little bit. And then it can be quite the process for some people, and others it's just like a whole queue thing. Just snap your fingers and you're out of it, right? So, myself, going through not really so much of a deconversion. I'll be honest, I don't really think. Here's the weird thing: is I was born to Christians, but they were young and Catholics, and that's a big no-no. So I was given up for adoption. I've met them since, by the way, and the relationship's great. And raised by Jewish people. So if
Yeah.
Christianity is the right way, then how come God made me be raised by Jewish people? Those damn Jewish people,
Yeah, it seems like a little bit of a fumble on the God's
Right,
plan.
right.
Yeah.
So growing up, and we were told that we were adopted, my sister and myself, at quite a young age. I think we were about 7 years old when we were told. And I was like, okay, well, what exactly is that? Well, you were born to some other people, but they couldn't keep you. So this is my mom speaking, me not being able to have children, needed to adopt, and we found you two lovely kids and adopted you. I was like, oh, thanks. I don't really think I got it at the time, but I understood later on. And and I had a pretty good life, privileged white guy. What's so yeah, and I mean that in sort of a way that I'm well aware of it, and I try to use that to help others. So there you go.
That's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I think that it's a good space that maybe wasn't being filled very much before you started your channel. So it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll anybody can come on. So any of you guys watching, if you have a deconversion story to share, hit me up.
Yeah.
Because anyone can come on. It doesn't matter, even if you think your story's boring. And I've heard that a few times. And then we get them into it and we talk for a bit, and they're like, wow, okay, maybe my story wasn't so boring. And
Right.
you know how my shows are. They're a lot of fun. And we always do after parties where I have the guests come in and they can meet all of my wacky friends like you, Erin, and everybody else, and get to know some of the community, so that they know that there is a place where they can go and feel at home and not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
and maybe get cheered up a little bit, because oftentimes I hear that when people come out of their belief systems, the families, disown them. And I think that's brutal myself. Like, I'll never understand that. But
yeah, like whether it's families or, in well, my sister-in-law's experience getting publicly shamed from her church right now. Like that's a lot. That's a lot to go through. And so it's imperative that you find other people, right? So
absolutely.
I think that that's a cool system to like get them to come on, share their story, and then immediately introduce them to some new friends. Like,
exactly.
I think that's awesome.
And many of us, I think, have become like family. Family doesn't necessarily always mean a blood tie, right? So, and I think I got a pretty good bunch of people around me. At least they keep me in good spirits. And there's a lot of regulars on the show, like, of course, Mikey, of course, because he's my producer. And lots of people that are always on there, like Canadian Ollieman. Like my brother from the other coast, right? Also Canadian. Well, it's in his name, so duh. But and he's all the way over in Newfoundland, I think, or something like that, or somewhere around there, the other side of Canada. So we're well represented.
Yeah, and like, don't you feel that like more and more, like there's so many people in Canada? I feel like we're really starting to like get our numbers up for the amount of atheists or non-believers in Canada. And like we don't all actually know each other, but it's pretty like you quickly do find each other on like these online spaces, right? Hopefully we can get together soon and like,
Well, as you know, I'm the community advocate for Canadian atheists, and I'm the guy that organizes all the gatherings that we will be doing. And we're probably going to have a little something coming up this summer. So I will let you know. But it'll probably be maybe in August, I think, or maybe even early September. Because in June, I'll be over at the Better conference in where is it now? Indiana, there, I think. Yeah, Mike and I are going down. Actually, it's funny. I looked up the plane tickets to fly to Fort Wayne. And it's like $1,000 Canadian, over $1,000. I'm like, what? Then I looked up the flights to Chicago, which is literally the next state over, and it was like $500. I'm like, Mikey, I'm coming to your place, and we're going to drive down together. So he's like, oh, okay, sounds good. So,
oh, that's awesome.
So we're going to be down at Better.
Even better then.
Yep. It'll be better for better.
Yeah, better for better. Yeah, that's good. I know there's lots of different kind of things getting organized. I love to see that. And each community kind of has something a little bit different for the people looking for the community that they're in need of. Like there's whatever you kind of need coming out of religion or other things like we mentioned. Whether you need just like some support or whether you need somewhere to like go and like, I don't know, laugh and kind of like, share memes, and like there are these different spaces for everybody, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about memes, you can always talk about my friend Randolph. Know him, Randolph Richardson. He's got an entire folder that's got something like 1 million memes in it. So It doesn't matter what you're talking about. He's got a meme pops up.
Yeah. I do find that that's one of the earliest ways to connect, like, or like for when I hear people who've come out of like religion and they realize that I am one of the first things that starts getting shared is memes, because I think it's just like the easiest way to like express how you're feeling, especially like if you felt like you've been like deceived or whatever. There's actually so many hilarious memes out there that like really accurately portray that feeling. So I don't know, I kind of it's a funny kind of little culture that happens with meme culture anyway.
Absolutely. It's fun.
Yeah, anybody who has not watched Neil's channel, I encourage you to go over and check it out and join in on some of the after parties and get
they're always fun.
Exactly.
Mind you, we can only have a maximum. I use StreamYard to go through, and I think we can have a mass. It's like the old Google Hangouts. You can get 10 in there, and that's it, I think. So, but mind you, with 10 people in there, sometimes it gets a little, people walking all over each other when they're talking. So, it can get a little crazy at some point. But for the most part, it's a good time. What kind of sucks now is last year, I discovered I had a blood clot.
Oh, really?
In my leg, fairly sizable one. So now I'm on. I hate calling them blood thinners because that's not actually what they do. They're anticoagulants, and being on anticoagulants means I can no longer drink. And I kind of miss having a couple of beers with the after party. Of course, I sneak one in once in a while, but the doctor doesn't like me doing that too much. So I'll have one here or there. Like if I go out
Yeah.
for dinner or something, I'll have one. But she's like, yeah, as long as it's just beer and you're only having one and it doesn't have an ABV of like 14 or something, you're good.
Right.
So, and I still got half a bottle of my favorite single malt scotch sitting right there in front of me, and I can't even touch it.
Oh, that sucks. That sucks.
Yes, it does. That's all right. I'll give it away to some lucky viewer. I don't know.
Yeah, for the first 10 people to show up in your after party after your next interview will get entered to the draw for a shot of Neil's special scotch.
I will be doing actually a giveaway on one of my shows soon, because I actually was digging through a bunch of stuff trying to find I can't remember what the hell it was. I was trying to find some sort of thing I needed for a job or something, and I came across a couple of unopened CDs of our first album, our little six song demos. So I'm gonna do a giveaway of one of those CDs. Yes.
Oh yeah. Did I not doesn't know that Neil's in a band? Yeah.
All the music on my show is also is our band as well. So the opening.
Oh really? I didn't know that.
Are all me. That's me singing. Well, trying to sing. I call it caterwauling, but you know.
Oh, that's awesome. So did you open them up and give them a listen?
No, I already have my own copy, but
I
I forgot I still had some.
Oh, nice. So. You're gonna auction them or put them in the draw for the people who show up to your after parties.
Yeah, or something. We'll do maybe we'll do a trivia thing or something, and and the first person to get the right answer will get a copy. Because I have 2 to give away. Well, maybe I might just have 1, because I think somebody made me promise them I'd give them 1. So actually, it's Mikey, so I'll probably end up giving him 1. But the thing is I could just send people my tunes for free, right? So just over the internet. It's that easy these days, kids.
All right, so for whoever calls in first, for our first caller will get entered.
Get entered in for a free CD.
New prize, yeah, new prize for that.
They have to like harder edged music.
Okay.
And my horrible voice.
No,
it's not that bad. It's not that. If my mom can listen to it, anybody can listen to it, and she likes Johnny Cash. Not that there's anything wrong with that. He's awesome. But she listens to stuff like Barbra Streisand and stuff. But she tolerates my music. I think the funniest thing is she came to one of our practices once and was sitting in the shed, and we're pretty loud, and she fell asleep. How do you do that, Mom?
Maybe like the vibrations. Yeah.
That could be.
I don't know. I fall asleep to a lot of things. I fall asleep to I like to listen to like podcasts right now. I go through different phases. Right now I'm going through a phase where I listen to a podcast or an audiobook, and like I'm like 10 minutes in and I'm out like a light. But it's not good, because sometimes I'm trying to stay awake during the day, or I'm listening to something and I start getting like my eyes are kind of starting to roll back.
Doing the nod.
I've trained myself to like associate talking with falling asleep now.
It's we're not allowed to jump on the internet at work anymore. So, and I use the work phone at work. So what I do there is I've got Audible, and I download all kinds of books and great courses plus stuff. And I just listen to that in the lab when I'm at work. So
yeah.
I work in a lab, guys. I'm sort of a hack chemist for an environmental company. So there you go.
I don't think a lot of people would have guessed that about you.
Nope. They say you're a biker, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe a little bit. I used to be. I don't have a bike anymore, but the last one I owned was in '92, I think so.
Right.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
And Aaron keeps giving me crap, saying, "Oh, I'm going to get an extra bike, and we're going to go biking through Phoenix." I'm like, oh, "Okay, don't beat me up."
Yeah, you and Aaron are probably like the 2 of the toughest looking people in the community, and some of the nicest people.
Yeah. We've actually swapped stories where people we knew that saw us come down the street and cross the street.
Right.
And
you're not small people, like you and
nope,
you're both quite tall.
I'm 6'4" and if I put my boots on, I'm over 6'5". So, and those are my biker boots.
So slightly intimidating.
And Aaron and I've got a great picture of the 2 of us standing in front of this restaurant where it says "Monkeys Welcome," and both of us are just these big, intimidating, long-haired, freaky guys. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine that would be intimidating. But once you get to know you, you're so
it's a different story.
Well,
that little story I was saying about someone crossing the road. I was dating a girl once. This is going back to probably the '90s, and her roommate goes, "Oh, now I recognize you," and I'm like, okay. Yeah, I saw you come down the street and I was scared shitless, so I crossed the street. And if I knew who you were now, like I know you now, I never would have crossed the street. And I go, yeah, I get that a lot.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. You got some water there, right?
Yeah, so we'd like to get into some calls here pretty soon. We do still have a few more lines open, so if anybody is in the audience right now and wants to call in and talk to Neil or myself, Neil is, as he has shown, he is not scary. He just looks a little bit intimidating. You can give us a call. The number again is 512-991-9242, or through your computer at tiny.cc/call TW.
And call, just say hi.
Yeah,
Happy
just
Friday.
call it. You know what? It's been a tough week. I think it's I mean, we are the northern neighbors to a lot of our friends in the States. It's been a kind of a stressful week. So I even if there's people there that just want to call in to maybe just vent a little bit, I would understand that. So we'll try to keep it light. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of stuff that's been going on, and I would be happy to talk to people about those issues as well. It's been a whirlwind of a week, I think, for a lot of people.
It has. I feel kind of bad for you guys down there in the U.S. What's going on? You're literally turning into the Handmaid's Tale, I think.
Yeah, and a good example of kind of why we do what we do here with like the atheist community of Austin and your channel, and like why we are trying to promote positive atheism and, secular communities and rational thinking, and we're trying to get these things out because we kind of, I think a lot of us are disappointed but not surprised by a lot of the things that have happened this week. So
that's a good way to put it. Not surprised, absolutely. Disappointed, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
And we here in Canada, we just reaffirmed our right to choose here. The government just said, oh, by the way, the rest of us Canadians, it's okay to be or to have your own choice here in Canada. We'll never let go of that.
Yeah. So I mean, if you want to support the show, support our mission here to do those things, promote positive atheism, there's a few different ways. You can hit the donate, donate right in the show notes. That goes straight to the atheist community of Austin. None of us take any of that. We are volunteers because we are here because we care about these issues.
That's right.
So that's a great way to support the show. And also, before we get into calls, the other best way to support the show is to become a patron. Every single week, we always like to take a moment to shout out at least one of our patrons who support us here at Truth Wanted. So before we take our calls, because we do have a few on the line, we're going to give a shout out. So this week, our patron of the week is...
If it's me, I'm going to laugh. Now they're looking for me. Let's make them laugh.
I know. Oh, here we go. I was just going to say, I know who it is, so I'm going to say it anyway. This week, we're going to shout out to Freethinker 215 or 215. So thank you, Freethinker. We appreciate your support for the show. And to anyone else who is interested in supporting us in that way, you can go to Patreon at tiny.cc/Patreon TW. That's a great way to show some support. So
definitely.
Let's get into some calls. Does that sound good?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay. Let's talk to Patrick. Patrick's calling from Wisconsin. Patrick wants to talk about population of certain groups of people not being at high enough and thinks that population growth needs to decrease. That's what I have written down here. Hi, Patrick.
Interesting.
Yeah, good evening to both of you.
How you doing, Patrick?
The reason I called is doing great. Thanks for putting on the show.
Yeah, thanks for calling. What can we help you with tonight?
Yes, I've kind of noticed a phenomenon, comments and things I see on the internet about certain countries and certain religious groups, in particular in the United States, that push the idea that there aren't enough of our kind of people. We need to have more kids. It almost seems like certain religions are trying to outproduce each other. And I saw a program a while back on the GD show about, I think the name of the religion had kind of a nickname of Quiverful, right? The idea that you just need to have more and more and more and more kids. And I think it's contrary to the idea of a sustainable earth, that we can just keep having kids and that there's no limit to the resources of the earth to maintain it. And I believe, the religions are kind of competing with each other to see who can have the most so that they can be the ones in the majority.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. I think there's a couple of different factors here.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the things that my understanding is that a lot of the kind of they're quite fundamentalist groups that kind of have this view of having many, many children. I think one of the reasons for that is because it's obviously instructed in the Bible to
in scriptures of multiple times.
Yeah, they say, and I mean,
multiply, right?
Right. Yeah. And they take that very literally. And so they think that is part of their decree as believers to produce as many children as they possibly can and leave it in God's hands, they would say. The other area that I think comes into it is that I think a lot of people that I know personally that grew up in, because I do know, and I grew up alongside people who were in families like that, they didn't necessarily believe in any kind of climate crisis or some of these kind of, these topics
There's a lot
that
of
we
denial.
talk about. Yeah, there's a lot of denial maybe about the issues that are going on and why there has been concerns with overpopulation. So I think I'm not joking when I say I've heard people answer those concerns with, the only person who can fix everything is God. And we're just going to they believe that, I'm talking about Christian fundamentalists in my experience, but they would say they're expecting Jesus to come back and he's the only one that could really fix this mess anyway. So even the ones that maybe were not even denying it, that's their response to it.
Now I have a question. Wasn't he supposed to come back during the time of his apostles?
I think you might be onto something there, Neil.
He literally said in today's terms, he said, "Stick around, kids. I'll be right back."
Yeah.
So
before you die.
Yeah, just went out. Yeah, just went down to the store for a pack of smokes, right?
It never came back. Oh, now we're getting into some. What's that guy's name? I can't remember.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts about it, Patrick?
I
think he's
I also think that the whole idea of being a dominionist, and I believe our last Secretary of State may have been one, but the idea that the earth is just ours to do with as we wish, and that all the flora and fauna are, for us to use however we see fit, and there's no need to take care of the planet because this isn't the one that's important. And I think that's really misguided. I think we're doing a great disservice to our descendants, right? My children, my children's children, even if I
100% agree.
Me too.
Yeah.
We very much
I really
agree
would
with
like to see, and I think education's important. I grew up in the 70s, and back then, the idea of conserving energy was a topic. We had a president that tried to show us that turning your thermostat down, right? He supposedly kept the White House at 68 degrees. And those kind of ideas were still out there, right? It might have been left over from the hippies, but those ideas were still out there. And I think we've taken such a, turn from that. We're not doing anything like that anymore. And if you're a dominionist, you really don't need to take care of the earth.
I'll tell you what, Patrick, I was also a 70s kid. And if I left my light on in my bedroom when I left my room, I was getting a whooping.
Exactly. And shut the door. We're not trying to heat the outside.
Heat up the outside. Yeah, exactly. The old tropes from the 70s. Gotta love them.
Now, what do you think what do you think is something that we could do about this? What is
There's another factor to this too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep, go ahead.
You got to remember, of course I'm going back quite a ways. And to me, it's like a hangover of that mindset. A long time ago, before medical science is what it was, you had lots of kids because only half of them made it usually. So you always had to have more and more good. I think that mindset stuck around with some of the fundamentalist folks.
Yeah, you can totally understand maybe why why those scriptures were written. I mean, they're written during a time when people were trying to grow their tribe, right? They're trying to grow and make their own communities bigger because it was a completely different set of issues that they had then, right? They had a lot of infant mortality, a lot of probably, I mean, even the mortality rate of the mothers, this, it was a whole different thing. back then, but to take those pieces literally now and to completely ignore the other issues that we have going on, it's kind of mind-boggling to me sometimes to how they can sit with those two things, even the people that do agree that there's a problem, but to sit with that and say, that their scripture comes over top of the the very real issues that we have, and like you said, the issues that are going to be affecting very our generations that are coming up, like my own kids. And it's not something that's way off in the future. It's right around the corner.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think educating people is what makes the difference. And if we were, as a society and societies around the world, were encouraged to have 1, 2, 3 kids tops, and that became the norm, I think that would be great. But I think with social media now and everything that's available to put out contrary messages, that's going to be really tough. I know that missionaries going to other parts of the world and bringing the religions with them push that message of no contraception and the idea, of course, no abortion, of course, but the idea that just follow the Bible and everything will be great. I think it's going to be problematic, but I'm hoping for the best. I know that there's a generation of kids coming up that are about, college age that have some different ideas, and I hope they, change the world again.
Patrick, I speak to people about leaving their faith behind. And one of the common threads I've noticed anyways, with at least about 60% of them, is the college years is usually what cracks that last straw. So once they get into college and, and they're exposed to a lot more than they ever imagined, different kinds of people, different kinds of beliefs. And that is one of the catalysts that can start a whole deconstruction, for sure.
Yeah, and education, not just teaching people like the facts of what are going on, because like I think you made a comment, Patrick, that like you're gonna have these facts and you have these things, and then there's a counter narrative going on. So I think that to go a layer beneath that even more, to really promote how do we think critically about the information that's in front of us, so that people can take even these different messages, and how do we actually like weigh these things out, and how do we verify which of these are, how do we source, get good source material, and like these are the things that I think are maybe the last kind of thing that we need to get out there, so people know how to assess the information that's coming in at them. Agreed. But I think you're right, Neil. I think that like this next generation, I think like they're not like there's a whole bunch of people coming up that are just not falling for the bullshit.
It's good to see.
I agree. And it's the critical thinking skills, right? The critical thinking skills that kids learn, that's important. And I think that needs to be emphasized. So I know I know that the call screener said there might be some more people coming up in the queue. So I just wanted to make sure I got the ball rolling.
No, thank you so much for calling in.
Great first call, Patrick. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Have a great rest of your night. Thanks for calling.
Cheers, brother.
Appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.
I grew up and my best friend's name was Patrick.
Oh, really?
I think I just made another Patrick best friend right there.
Patricks are drawn to you.
I guess. Bring back up the conversation about the quiverful movements. Like, did you have any experience with families like that? I have people in my extended families that have that mindset. So, and it's a real thing. Like, they do not try to slow down any of the births of their children. There is nothing stopping them from having 10, 11, 12, 13 kids. We had, there was a family in our neighborhood, only one really, now that I think about it, in relative area where I grew up. They had 8 kids. And I didn't find this out till my teenage years, but they just didn't believe in contraception or IUDs or tube tying or any of that, or vasectomies or whatnot. As they said, if they're going to, have a little hubba going on and she gets pregnant, then they're keeping the kids. Like it's just another one for doing the chores.
And you know what? It's not even just in like the fundamentalists, like the smaller like insular groups. It kind of leaks out into other larger spheres of like of religions too. Like I went to like
Sure.
a fairly like non-denominational, it was Pentecostal, but non-denominational large church, and like I was married quite young, and those kind of ideas were put on me too, just in Bible study. Those things came up all the time. Like, you know, it was kind of a hush hush thing if you were on birth control, or if you weren't immediately trying to have kids. You that's kind of like the world of evangelicalism. It's, you know, you're dating, and then right away they're like, when are you getting married? And then as soon as you're married, when are you having kids? And you're like, I'm 19. I was
Slow
a little older
down.
than that. But yeah, it's like
This isn't a Monty Python sketch.
yeah, and it kind of becomes like a just another way to kind of show off your purity and your level of faith, like whether you trust God enough to not even use contraceptive. Like that's a whole different game, right?
Yeah. God told me to use the pull-out method. What?
Yeah. Oh, and then there's a whole other thing, like family. There's like, for people that don't believe in using any contraceptives, but there's like ways that they could like try to control it still. So like the planning stuff, I can't remember what it's called, but it's not exactly reliable. I know many of people that had babies during while they were using that kind of method of not getting pregnant. So anyway.
For sure. Somebody in the chat said I have a voice for doing cartoons or animation.
You do.
And I have done. I've worked with Prophet
really?
Zod, Bionic Dance. Yeah. I've done
a few, that's right.
And I'll be doing more. So stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely.
I can imitate a lot of stuff too, so it's a lot of fun.
Impressions. Okay, we'll have to hear one later in the show.
Yeah, sure.
Let's get into another call here. Let's talk to Sven, calling from Washington. Sven wants to talk about the intrinsic nature of things, and do the host, so do Neil and I believe that there's a difference in brain capabilities. Hi, Sven.
In what?
Yeah, I'm gonna get you to
yeah.
maybe word that for us. So yeah.
Certainly. So oftentimes, I've caught a few times in different shows speak about the soul, and I often find the key difference missing in this conversation is that spiritualists, and therefore also theists, tend to accept or to perceive reality as having intrinsic natures, and it's physics doesn't touch on that. So a lot of materialists, especially non-Platonist materialists, don't even consider that there might be intrinsic nature to things. And so I just wonder, do you think that's something that just some people grasp and perceive things one way and another type is able to perceive it a different way? Or do you think it just takes education? Do you see what I'm saying?
Quick question. When you say people like are you speaking to people that have sort of like a magical thinking?
Oh, no, like I said, I've called about the soul a lot. I'm a firm believer that there's a soul. I'm not a theist. I believe anyone can have knowledge on the metaphysics, but I do believe metaphysics.
Do you really? I'm interested in knowing what convinced you of that.
Yeah.
Well, I did grow up in Christianity. I went to Methodist church. I left at like 20 when I was kicked out of a music ministry for being too queer. But
I'm sorry.
The afterlife and the soul. Oh no, it's okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Is what I should say. But I guess a good way to put it would be like when I talked on Truth Wanted with Oz and Dan. Oz wanted to bring up how to measure the soul. And I said it's like asking to explain gravity, or what gravity and its intrinsic nature is. And what our tools do is measure the extrinsic property of things. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I happen to know a little bit about measuring stuff because I am a scientist myself. Well, chemistry, actually.
Love it.
The laws of physics that are underlying of everyday life are pretty much understood, are completely understood.
Yeah.
And everything happens within the realms of possibility, right? So when you're talking about a soul, I would have to sort of know what you mean by a soul. Like, what would a soul be made out of? Because if it is made out of I understand you mean, we can't really dabble in metaphysics, but it's called metaphysics for a reason, because we have physics, and anything outside of what we know of in physics, we threw the label of metaphysics on. So for there to be an afterlife, that would mean that consciousness would need to be something that is entirely separate from your physical body, which we know it's not. So I kind of want to know what you believe a soul is made out of.
I would push back on saying we know it's not, because there's no way to confirm that consciousness exists outside of a body.
That's why we know it's
there.
not.
It doesn't prove that it's not there.
Well, if it could leave your body, it would have to be some form of matter or energy, which basically are the same thing too, by the way. Matter and energy are the same. But anyways, it would have to be some form of that. And if it were, it would be measurable. And we have yet to do so. So that's kind of like if you have this idea that maybe no one really thought of, you might be able to like spark something and go, and now scientists go, holy shit, let's look for that, that kind of thing. So what would you say a soul would be made out of, or consist of anyways?
I have no extraordinary claims to present to you, unfortunately. If I could go into panpsychism and plenty of things that your chat would just say is word salad. But the philosophy of mind is out there.
You
and
don't say that.
Go ahead. I get that a lot.
I know. I'm just.
That's kind of why I wanted to focus more on less on what philosophy of mind is, and more on. Do you think there's a difference in personality of the kind of people who can accept?
If we go back to kind of
Okay.
If we go back to like the kind of like what your call was about, like the descriptor of like intrinsic nature. Do you want to go into what you mean by that? Maybe we could kind of go down that line a little bit with you.
An intrinsic nature of something is separate from its extrinsic natures of what it does. Then the intrinsic nature is what it is. It's kind of why I was bringing up the gravity thing, because we can only use tools to measure extrinsic properties of things. We can never know what gravity is or why it's there versus not there. We can't know the intrinsic properties of things by science, by physics.
Okay, do you think it's more important to know what gravity is, or do you think it's more important to know the effects of it, the stuff about gravity, because we have now measured gravity waves? So do you think it's more important to know about that so that we can deal with the knowledge of gravity, like, putting on jet boots and of defying gravity? Or do you think it's more important to know exactly what gravity is? Because we do have a very good idea of what gravity is and what it's about, mass attracting mass and stuff like that. So when you say it, the intrinsic,
love that question.
You know what? Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love that question. Yes, when dealing with physics, things, time, matter, space, energy, knowing the extrinsic properties of things brings great utility. It is most definitely more utilitarian, or you can utilize better the extrinsic properties of it. But if you were to ask me, is it more important to know the extrinsic properties of a soul or the intrinsic properties of a soul, I would be much more interested in the philosophy of mind and the intrinsic nature of consciousness than the extrinsic natures that we can measure through psychology.
Right. So you essentially do believe that there is a difference then between like the extrinsic, like the things that we describe about the brain and about our experience, and then there is something different than that that you would call like the intrinsic nature of like your consciousness or your soul. Is that right?
Yes, what I am is much more, the understanding what humans are is much more important to me than understanding what humans do.
Okay.
Well, to answer your question, because you did ask, like, do we believe there's a difference in brain capabilities? So I'm not sold on this idea that there is like something separate that the brain, like when you're describing maybe as consciousness or like the intrinsic nature of our minds, I think that is still something that the brain is doing. So I guess my answer would be no, I haven't been convinced of anything that would let me say that I believe that there's something separate going on. But
Right, and I think that kind of comes from a place of... Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead. There's a delay.
Certainly. So that's kind of like where my question wanted to go down, what you think, if you think there's a separation in personhood between a person that can believe that and can't. Because, like, it blows my mind that you can think there's nothing more to life, and it blows your mind that I can think there is more to life than physics.
Okay,
like,
so
Neil
it's more of a...
earlier had said, that's why we call it metaphysics. And I'm like, yes, that is why we call it metaphysics. And it's so freaking exciting. But to the materialist non-Platonists, they're going to say, no, it's just metaphysics. It's just word salad.
So your questions are more about, like, do you think there's a difference between you and myself because we can take these completely different positions on something? Like what you mentioned earlier, like it is, I don't think that like there's something so obviously different.
Not be able to separate that?
No, not at all.
I missed that one. I missed what you said.
Is it a disability not to be
do you think it's a disability for someone's brain to not be able to perceive that?
No, not at all. Not at all.
It's so beautiful. But no.
I think that there's like, this is an unanswerable question in a lot of ways of like what makes somebody's like their brain state set up to be like to become convinced by something or to have that experience where, you know, you have that I can't think of the word, like that sense of awe and wonder about like that there has to be something. I think that like there is different kind of personality, and personality we know is like affected by so many different things. I don't think that there is anything essentially different about our brains. I think that it just comes down to a little bit a different like
what we're convinced of and what we're not.
What we're convinced of, and also like our past experiences. And like if you're somebody who has like has a hard science kind of background, I think that they're going to be maybe a little bit leaning on to one side a little bit more to needing a certain amount of evidence to become convinced of something. Somebody who was raised in an area where there is a lot more of these kind of fluid kind of claims made, I think it's a lot easier for that person to remain in that state and be easily convinced of things. But I don't think there's anything that's like different about our brains. I think it has a lot to do with maybe past experience and what you're exposed to. Because I know like I used to be of one brain state of being convinced by something. And through the process of more exposure to things, I changed to a different type. And I'm now okay with the idea that there's not an immaterial kind of something going on in our brains. And I don't lose sleep over it. And I'm not mad about it either, that people still think about it. I like hearing what they come up with. And I think that it's a very worthwhile conversation still.
Sure.
Nothing radically changed about me.
No.
Yeah.
For a quick note here, I thought I once had an out-of-body experience. I actually wrote a song about it. But until I noticed that, so through some documentaries that I saw other people having those same experiences in a laboratory setting. And they were able to stimulate the part of the brain that gives you the out-of-body experience. And they literally thought they were out of their body. But the test came down to whether or not they could read the signs that were strategically placed in places.
Like the veridical.
On top of, or up on top of a shelf, they'd have a boo or a hello or something. And these people claimed that they were flying around the room, but none of them were able to tell them what was written on any of those pieces of paper because, as we now know, thanks to some of the discoveries in neuroscience, it's all going on up here and not externally. So I have a quick question for you, Sven. Are you familiar with any of the quantum field theory?
Not enough to where anyone would want to have a conversation with me. I love Sean Carroll. I dabble, but I have no professional education. Yeah, every time I talk quantum, it would not go well. Go ahead.
Okay, well,
understanding of it.
In quantum field theory, there is a belief, anyways, that every particle has its own field. So, in order for something like the soul, I mean, if it was real, it would have to be some form of matter or particle, and it would have its own field, and they have yet to find that field. Now, that's not saying they won't someday, because remember, they were chasing the Higgs boson forever until they finally found it, right? So you never know. But so far, it's come up bupkis.
So I think that, like,
correct.
Neil,
yeah.
Neil, I think Neil and I would kind of hold the position that unless something can be kind of demonstrated on that extrinsic level, it's kind of maybe better to hold the position of I'm not convinced, and therefore I will say that that there needs to be more evidence for it, right? Whereas something has convinced you, Sven, I think you would you claim that you said you don't want to make any extraordinary claims, but like you are currently convinced that there is something kind of immaterial about the what would you call it? The soul,
You can't call it
consciousness?
immaterial. You can't
Okay,
call it
yeah.
immaterial. Immaterial equals doesn't exist because it literally
Yeah,
means it's
that's why
not
I was just gonna
material.
say how
No,
We're in a
how do
material
you
universe.
describe it? How
Doesn't
are you
matter. If it's
describing it?
immaterial, it means it's not made of matter, so it can't exist in this universe because we live in a material universe.
But that doesn't mean, though, that life is closed to this universe.
I don't know what that
We have
means.
no way of
That's a
looking
big
beyond
leap.
the universe.
Well,
What's that?
let's see what the James Webb Telescope comes up with.
Right.
If we could see the edge, that'd be a good start.
Yeah.
But yes,
Well,
I completely believe in a soul. I think there is more to me and to you. That I think morality is a great example of the soul. I think there's lots of evolution that happens in humanity that is good evidence that some kind of soul or spirit is changing in us collectively as a earth and a race.
Okay, that's interesting.
That is interesting. You want to bite into that one, Neil?
Yeah, like the fact that there's less evil today.
You like a shared consciousness kind of thing, or?
Well, I think you had mentioned like panpsychism, right? You're kind of
panpsychism.
of that persuasion. Yeah.
I love it. There's many different types of it, but
I've looked into panpsychism somewhat. My understanding is it's been a while, but my understanding is that consciousness is it's kind of a compatible view for a lot of people, because it's like the consciousness as like an emergent, like an emergent property out of evolution and more complicated and complex neural systems, and that because they think that that's present in many things in the world, not just in humans. I mean, that's kind of like down that path, right?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of a panpsychism is French, but within panpsychism, there are few people who would say it arises from. Oh my goodness, why am I blanking right now? I'm sorry, my nerves took over. What did you say?
Oh, sorry, man.
Yes, so there aren't many sides of panpsychists who believe that consciousness emerges. What panpsychism traditionally means is that there is consciousness within every particle. It is fundamental, so there is something to be an electron. There is something to be an element. But
I'm just wondering, like, how is it that they're describing consciousness
emerge from a collection of that? Consciousness would be the experience of.
So they believe in every single electron is having some sort of experience.
If experience exists within humans, if we can see that experience exists, then it must exist on a fundamental level, because in physics, everything.
How do you make that leap?
Down to a fundamental
does seem like
level.
A leap.
If we experience this because our brains are functioning properly.
Every fundamental. We can't find the exact location. We can see where it all mixes and intertwines and works, but you can't locate consciousness. We can see where the electricity happens.
I think that's just to me, it's like a problem of inference, though. Like, because
I think so.
I don't know.
Because they
I think
do
that's kind of
it leads back to I think it leads back to the intrinsic and extrinsic thing, Which is why I was wondering if even these great scientists and philosophers have trying to compatibilize philosophy of mind and physics. I wonder if there's just a complete difference in the kind of person who can believe in the profound and who can't. And it seemed like earlier, Erin, you were trying to say that you think it's more nurture that allows someone to believe in the profound. And
I think that I do think it's my opinion is that it is very, very closely tied to personality. And I think personality it's both. I think it's both biological and also nature and nurture, basically. But I think that, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not like any kind of neuroscientist or anything like that. That's just my kind of intuition about it, is that it is largely related to personality, and that is kind of, both.
Let me put it this way: for the surviving your own death, which I highly doubt is a thing, personally, but in some capacity after death, the tests on the quantum field would have revealed some form of, for lack of a better term, spirit particle or spirit forces. They would have revealed themselves on the quantum field, and they've never had that experience, even around people that have passed away. So it would have to reveal itself somehow in order for it to actually be a thing.
Well, I believe, I would need to double check with Philip Goss, but I believe the panpsychists would say that consciousness, human consciousness, doesn't need to disasperate or disperse at death, because it goes from your brain as one collection of matter having a consciousness to the individual particles of your brain having that consciousness.
So wouldn't that like
neurons?
Wouldn't that alter? So say that is what we're. If I'm stepping into this, I don't understand. So I'm trying to do my best. So if our experience is the result of a collection of these consciousness particles, but once we die and our body is no longer there to like hold it all together, wouldn't it like completely change the experience?
It would disperse.
It would make
all the particles would disperse.
Like that almost takes to me. So even if that was true, even if like the panpsychism in that way, that each individual electron has its own experience, the fact that they're no longer collected in that same way, to me, would mean it's kind of irrelevant whether there's something that would still exist afterwards. I don't know. I think I'm going to have to look into this one a little bit more. I like where Neil's going with this. I am interested in like the philosophy of this. I'm not a super philosophizer myself. I'm doing my best to learn about it. But I have to look into a little bit more. But
it's fine.
I don't know.
Real quick though,
once every 3 or 6 months, because I don't want to overload the channel with philosophy and get word salad comments.
Yeah, I know, and I do apologize for that. That is something, and I probably have had that same feeling too, because philosophy is very like, it's lots of different new words and like lots of different concepts that are really kind of hard to wade through a lot of the times. So I don't know. I would like you if you called back in 3 to 6 months, and I'll see if I've done my research on this, and we can have a better conversation about it. Neil, you had one more thing to say, Neil, and then we'll let you go after this, Sven.
They're getting quite close now to figuring out which parts of the brain are responsible for human consciousness, and they figure I think there's 4 or 5 different sections of the brain that combine to give you the self-awareness, all that stuff that makes whatever consciousness is. So they're getting closer to it, and you never know, Sven, they might find something we didn't know about once they figure that out. So you can always keep your fingers crossed and hope for the best.
Yeah,
I try to stay up to date. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Erin. I hope you have a lovely weekend.
Yeah, thank you for calling in.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Have a great rest of your day. The delay is killing me. Oh man. That is a topic that I've tried really hard to understand more, to try, because I want to be able to like kind of charitably take this this idea, because it's not theism. I don't think anybody that is arguing from panpsychism is calling to
no, not necessarily
claim that there is an afterlife, and that means something about what I should do in bed. That's different. I think that it is. I think that it's a bit more of a, I don't know, it's a conversation I'm willing to take and consider a little bit more, but I still ultimately come down to that I like what you had said, that there's nothing to measure, and there's nothing there for me to point at and say, oh, that's it, that's the thing that you're talking about that lives after this is gone. So I don't know.
I mean, when you die, that old expression that I often hear used a lot in sort of defense of these wooey kind of beliefs is, well, energy doesn't die, it changes form. And
right.
I think Neil deGrasse Tyson said it the best. He goes, yeah, when you die, you become food energy for the flora and fauna that you fed off of during your lifetime. Or if you're what's that, burnt up, cremated, then you go up in smoke, and your atoms are dispersed back into the universe from whence they came. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So let's we've got a few more calls on the line. There is a few calls open, or a few lines open still. So if you want to get your call in before the end of the show, give us a call now and we'll get you through. Neil, let's take a look and see what has been going on around on the other shows at the atheist community of Austin.
I'm down for that.
You have permission to get out of your head, to stop worrying about what a bullshit culture or a hypothetical future person or a bunch of 2,000-year-old Jewish poetry has to say about the subject. Enjoy your life.
This is a really good example. Two examples of two polar opposite abortion calls.
Yes.
You could choose the John way, or you could choose the right way to do these calls. We can be civil, or we can get our teeth out.
Atheists are here to ruin your fun or whatever. Like, that seems to be what
But Jessica,
we end up with over and over. Oh my God, I hate fun. I famously hate fun. Thank you for bringing that up so I can talk about it now.
No
Fun
problem.
is terrible.
Stephen, I was taught a lot of stuff too when I was younger, and which was every part of my life I was younger than I am right now. And historically speaking,
back when you were Johnny P. Cherub.
The origin of life is irrelevant to whether or not we. The origin of life is irrelevant to whether. Would you shut the up and listen to me, Jay? I'm answering your question, and then you won't be as ignorant as you were before.
I feel like we're talking to an evangelical Christian meme generator.
So I am going to be telling you now, if you stick around till the end of the show, we also have a special announcement. I forgot to mention it earlier. So stick around till the very, very end of the show, everybody who's watching, because we have something very special to show you. But until then, let's hop into another call. Let's talk to Mark calling in from California. Mark, you want to talk to us about, I think, morality, and actually I'll let you ask the question here.
Yes, I was put in an orphanage when I was 3, and I was raised Roman Catholic, but and beaten for not believing. I always considered, up until I just gave up on all of it, I considered myself a Zen Christian, which means I believe the universe is completely an illusion, and it's all my fault.
It's all your fault. I like that. That's good. I like that. Mark, why do you think it's all your fault? And if it is your fault, it's great so far. So keep it up.
Yeah, and here's an interesting question: if I have an exorcism and I fail to pay my exorcist, will I get repossessed?
Yeah,
you came out here to tell dad jokes, didn't you?
7 times or something. No, I think that's how it works.
Actually, I forgot. I should have told the call screener that I actually had what I would call near-death experience about 6 months ago. Not in the typical manner that most people describe a near-death experience, because what I had, I had a heart attack. I'm 76 years old. I had a heart attack, and subsequently I had bypass surgery at the VA. And 2 nights after the surgery, my heart actually stopped beating and went into this fibrillation. Oh, wow. And I could actually feel it wiggling in my chest. And it was in the middle of the night. And they told me that only the lead surgeon on the surgical team could authorize a response. So, and they couldn't find him. So I laid in that bed, and I don't even know how this is possible, but I laid in that bed for an hour and a half with no heartbeat. And I was conscious. I could feel my heart wiggling. And this kind of necessitated my complete evaluation of my life, so to speak.
Like the light flashing in front of your eyes, kind of.
You know that expression? Yeah, just kind of thinking about, okay, now, and you've probably heard that expression, there are no atheists in foxholes.
Yes.
Yeah, once or twice.
Too many times.
Meaning, yeah, well, I'm here to tell you that's not true. I wasn't in a foxhole, but I was as near to death as I ever want to be. So I was kind of obligated to evaluate everything about my life, and I decided.
Sorry that it took that kind of an experience to get you to do that. Oh, sorry, Mark.
Yeah, and that's all right. It only confirmed my atheism, and I felt really at peace with the fact that when I kind of figured this out long ago, but unlike the movies or TV, when death occurs, there is no fanfare, there is no dramatic moment or music, or I don't turn my head and close my eyes kind of thing. Life just stops. And if I'm lucky, I won't be aware of it. And I don't want to die a painful death. Woody Allen once said he didn't mind dying. He just didn't want to be there when it happened. And that's kind of my, I'll give you one more quip, and that was from Voltaire. When he was on his deathbed, his religious friend said, "Okay, now are you going to denounce the devil?" And he said, "Well, this is no time to be making enemies." But
that's funny.
The one more serious point I wanted to make was that I have a number of religious friends who just won't leave it alone. I'm sure you know the kind of people I'm talking about, that every conversation involves praising God and all this kind of stuff. And in my experience, which is considerable, I have never met two people in my life that have the same religious views. Atheists all have the same, not religious.
Well, we have the one thing in common, I think.
I've heard the expression very similar to that,
well,
Mark,
that's what I mean.
Every single person has their own theology. I've heard that as well. Yeah. Right.
And so this is what I've observed. If there is a deity, well, first of all, I would say, let me just finish that. If there is a deity, here we are, and this is what we're doing. If there is no deity, here we are, and this is what we're doing. And so I believe the way I respond to Christians is they demand that I or insist that I tell them what I believe. I say that I believe that religion attempts to answer two different questions. One is what I call the deity question. How do we get here? And is anybody in charge and all that? The other question is what I call the morality question, which is how should we get along? How should we regard one another? And how can we do that? And the first question, the deity question, is totally moot. It doesn't matter whether there's a deity or not, because it won't change anything that we're doing. And how would we know the difference? It's all moot. And everybody has a completely unique viewpoint. So that is moot and does not matter. But the other question, how should we regard one another? And how can we get along? That is a question I'm not only willing, but eager to address.
Sure.
And in my 76 years, there is one word that defines what I believe is the most important value in the universe, and that is kindness.
Not going to argue with
kindness
you.
Is,
yeah. It's a pretty solid place to start.
I can't think of a situation where more kindness or kindness applied is not appropriate. I just can't. And unfortunately, I sometimes fall short of my goal.
I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be very kind to somebody if I catch them raping somebody. So,
but you're showing kindness by defending the victim. I think like there's a way to always kind of bring kindness into the situation.
Sure.
Yeah. I think you're.
And
I think Mark. Whoop, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that like you're on there. Like, I can't disagree with much that you've said here. The only thing that I can think of is just that like the two questions that get brought up, you say in your conversation so often, is the deity question and the morality question. The only thing I think of right away is that for them, those two questions are like they're tied together.
Yeah.
So for them, they can't answer their morality question without their deity questions, and so
right.
I like the morality. The argument from morality or objective morality is probably like one of the top arguments used by theists to talk about.
It sucks.
And for
morality is objective.
Yeah, and like I think it's a good tactic, because I think that it's true that everybody who lives in society is concerned with how we ought to treat each other. So I think that I think there's a good reason why they use that argument so often. But unless they can prove to me their deity exists, I don't care. I don't care what their deity wants me to do. Yeah.
Right, and I don't care whether they can prove it or not. It doesn't matter. It won't change anything.
Hey, Mark,
they try to steer the question towards deity. I say, well, that doesn't matter. It's moot. I don't want to talk about it.
That's right.
There you go.
Here's a pro tip for you. They can't prove it. Right. I said there's a pro tip for you. They can't prove it.
But it's a kind of a non-confrontational way of putting it back on them. And I just wanted to say that I really like the show. The thing I like most about these shows, I
Canadians
love to hear intelligent people making sense. I just really enjoy that.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you so much.
And I will leave you with one more remark. I once asked a priest when I was a kid. I asked the priest, Father, I have a question about what happens after you die. And he said, well, I'll try to answer that as best I can. I said, who's going to get your car?
It's good.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for calling, Mark.
You just made my day. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Bye.
Have a great weekend, buddy.
You made my day. So thank you for calling.
Yeah, this was an enjoyable one.
Take care.
My pleasure. Bye.
Bye. I do love receiving calls where I feel like I just kind of want to sit back and listen to the wisdom of someone who's been around a little longer than me. So and I think that one of the things that I did pick up from that is I think that showing a little bit of apathy towards some of these questions is a tactic in itself for dealing with religious people. When people come to you and they are 10 out of 10, their energy level talking about these things, to be like, I don't care, is an argument in itself, right? Like, anyway,
I agree.
Yeah, I do want to take a minute to shout out or to talk about something really important. We have another limited edition T-shirt. Ooh. We have new merch here with Truth Wanted that we've been selling for the last little bit here, and I just happen to think that the current shirt is the best. So if you want to take a look at the website tiny.cc/merch ACA, that special edition Truth Wanted shirt in the center there that has, I think, a Sasquatch, what did they say? A Sasquatch, a ghost, an alien, Jesus, and a unicorn, and a chimera, I believe. All of our favorite creatures on there. And that one's only going to be available for a couple of weeks here. So check it out. Yeah, we're having new edition designs, so you have to get them when they're available. And this is like my favorite one we've had yet. So they also have other things on there too, like the hoodies and masks and totes and things like that too. So that's another great way to support the show. And we're gonna take, I think we have time for one more call here before we.
I have the original Truth Wanted t-shirt. So.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I'm becoming kind of a geek because I talk about my Truth Wanted shirt all the time, and Dan told me that it's not cool to wear your Truth Wanted shirt while you're hosting Truth Wanted. He didn't say it to me. I took it personally because I've done that so many times. Because I really like my shirt. I wear it a lot. So
I've worn it doing the show.
They're super comfortable. I think it's a good shirt. I don't know. Yeah, Dan. Don't be so such a judgmental. Dan is so judgmental, right? He's just that kind of guy. No.
Are we talking about the same guy?
No.
No. You know, there's not many people that are taller than me.
That's true.
Dan's one of them.
Yeah. You guys
by that much.
You're right up there, up in the sky. I don't know. Let's take one more call here before we close out the night and go to our very special announcement that we have at the end of the show. Let's talk to Isaiah. Isaiah is calling from South Korea. He wants to know, how do the hosts feel about atheist churches? Hi, Isaiah.
Thank you so much for taking my call. I do want to say that I went to Bible college, and that experience actually made me wind up becoming an atheist myself. And so whenever
it's not the first time I've heard that.
Nope, that's not uncommon.
Do we lose it?
You still there, Isaiah?
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh man, I really want to talk about atheist churches because I have an answer.
I'm starting.
I'll pop him back down here. Oh, let's see if I can get it back up here. Isaiah, can you hear me, Isaiah?
Yeah.
We
can you
lost
hear me?
you for a second.
Hello?
Yes, we got you. Yay!
We got you.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'll try to make sure my phone doesn't go off. Anyway, so I moved overseas to South Korea, and there wasn't much of a community. And I started to look online, about atheist churches. And I had a degree, in Bible and speaking and stuff. So that was something I had wanted to start myself. I wound up later on becoming a Christian myself, but I was just curious if that was something you guys would be interested in attending, because I think the community is probably something that a lot of atheists miss.
Sometimes, yeah. My initial answer is yeah, I'd go, because I don't think there's anything that initially
it would be a
would
nickname.
Say, I would, yeah.
Wouldn't necessarily be a church, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. My first thought is yeah, of course, if it's a thing, I would go back to church, a regular church right now too. I'm not opposed to going to an event. Obviously,
right,
it's
right.
not a big deal. Would I become a member, a full-fledged every week goer? It would just totally depend on what it was the environment and what it offered as far as community and things like that. I don't really see the point of calling something atheist church unless it's set up very similarly, or maybe even if using the same facilities,
Pastafarianism maybe.
Yeah, but I'm not I don't hate it. It's just, it is what it is. I think that it's really easy to just get together as atheists anywhere. So
yeah,
that's kind of my feelings about it. How about you, Neil?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start my own atheist church, and if you become a member, it's 20% of your annual income. So.
Oh, see, that's part of that. That's part of those details that I would need to know. I'm not forking over anything.
We're not in.
Unless you get cool merch.
Well, of course, it'd be cool merch.
Yeah.
You get burnt copies of my CD. How's that?
So Isaiah, did you say that you were an atheist, but then you converted to Christianity?
Hey, you don't hear that much.
Yeah, I had a religious, I would call it a face-first collision with Christ about 8 years ago. Ooh. Actually, in about a week, it'll be 8 years. So,
wow.
After probably a decade of non-belief.
Care to tell us what happened?
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I was extremely. You might call it a militant atheist. I call it evangelical atheism, but it's like to where atheism isn't enough for you. It's like you need to spread it or belittle people who believe in faith. And so I don't know. I was really into a lot of different stuff and really immoral living overseas. But I just had an experience where Jesus Christ spoke to me in my room, 5:16. So as I said,
hold it.
In 1 week, it will be yeah.
Hold on,
did you hear
Isaiah? Did you audibly like?
Yeah, we were both
out
fighting to say
loud?
that.
You sure somebody didn't set up a
I was in my room and I know. Trust me, I literally jumped across my. And I was looking around my room, and I was certain someone broke into my room, because the last thing in the world I thought was God was speaking to me. And so I looked into my closet because that was the only place I thought, the voice might be coming from. And there was nothing in there. And then he told me some other stuff. And I ran into my cousin's room, which was like right next to me. And I told him that God spoke to me. And he thought I went absolutely crazy. And I told my family. They made me get into counseling. And but that was 8 years ago, though. My life has never been the same since then. But yeah, it's a pretty crazy experience. Most people think I'm crazy to tell them that, but I mean, I know what I experienced. No, I know what my life was before and after that. So.
Okay, so no. First of all, we don't think you're crazy. I'm just curious. I'm just curious about your experience. I'm curious about. I mean, we could go into a lot of questions. My first question would be like, what time of night was it, and were you were you clearly thinking? Were you on anything? Were you asleep? How do you know that it wasn't somebody's phone from the other room, or like there's all these kind of like things that I would be curious about. I don't know if we have time to get into all this today. I'm curious too about maybe like what it was, maybe like the content of what was said to you as well. And how do you think that affected your life and that changed your life so much?
I think actually both of you guys' messages on Twitter about coming on to my podcast. I normally don't get into all the full details of that, because it's like, why really tell people whenever I already know that they're not going to believe whatever it is? Because whenever I was an atheist, if you told me something like that, even 10% of what I experienced, I would have shut you down and not listened to what you had to say. So to me, it's a little bit disingenuous for me to try to explain it to somebody and expect them to believe me, because I know the incredulity that I used to have, and I wouldn't have believed me. So it does make me feel uncomfortable. But he did tell me some like personal things about myself, and then it spoke to me for about 30 seconds. I should say he. But I mean, I guess we could have that.
I do understand. I understand. It's like these things that people would call religious experience oftentimes are described as something incredibly personal. So besides thinking that we're just going to outright flat out deny whatever you're saying, I think that it's okay to just say it's kind of personal. But I don't know. Unless we can really kind of investigate what happened there, I guess I will continue to stay at a place of not convinced about your experience.
Skepticism.
I believe that you probably did have an experience, but unless we can kind of go into like examining what happened, what was said, and how you maybe went about verifying whether that experience was something that happened in reality.
That it wasn't internal,
not much
versus
more
external.
Like I do obviously have a lot of questions about it. But if we don't want to talk about it, then I can't really ask you too many questions about it.
Real quick though, Isaiah, we have a friend in common, and his name is Randolph Richardson, and he said to say hello. So I think we lost him.
Well, I think he's calling from South Korea. That's probably a disconnect. Anyway, Isaiah, thanks for calling in. If you're
Randolph.
You're breaking up on us.
Randolph, you're breaking up on us.
Is an absolutely.
I'm going to assume that was a nice.
Is an amazing
Yeah, yes, he is. You're breaking up. You're coming. You're fading in and out. Yeah, it always fades when he gets to the good part.
Yeah. Okay, Isaiah. I'm gonna drop you down here because I think you're cutting out in and out quite a bit. Although we could have filled in the gaps there for you and just kind of finished that sentence along for you. I believe he was saying that Randolph is a great atheist. If I'm hearing him correctly.
I think so. He's in the chat actually watching the show right now. So there you go, Randolph. He said to say hi and thinks you're great.
Yeah, and obviously he's not a militant or evangelical atheist or whatever those terms.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And that's still like I think they just mean like jerks, human beings that are jerks. I don't know, but I think
that's fun with it in the chat now too. Randolph is a ... He's a ... That's funny.
No, that's awesome. Okay, so let's get into a few like last things here. I think that's it for calls for tonight. I think that we got some pretty good calls.
I think
some
so
of them,
too.
I feel like I need a lot more information to get going on it. I hear about these religious experiences and I want to know the juicy details, but I know not a lot of people want to kind of share that because I mean, I think a lot of times if it's something that's going to cause somebody to change their belief system, it's going to be something that obviously maybe was very emotional for them or personal, whatever, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
They usually are. I mean, they touch them deeply, and I think that's why they end up being convinced of the experience they had.
Yeah.
But I was going to sort of tell him that, like I had mentioned earlier, these are the kinds of experiences that can be recreated in a lab setting.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and then my thoughts are just that like you do hear about like even if he were to give us details, which I've heard lots of different details, and I've had some of my own experiences when I was a believer. There's nothing that can be
right.
Well, that I was aware of anyway. There's nothing that happens exclusively within Christianity or even a particular denomination that doesn't happen naturally to humans from all other contradicting faith, different religions that have contradictory beliefs. So it's hard to say that something is legitimately exclusive or is happening within one faith if it's happens in a different faith. It's the outsider test for faith, basically. And I think that's a pretty good one that kind of throws a little bit of doubt onto those experiences for me. And I'm saying that from as a former Pentecostal.
A little quick thing before we say goodbye. You'll see an anonymous donor in the chat for the fundraiser that we have for the ACA there.
Oh, wow.
That anonymous donor was me, folks. So it's a challenge to you.
Yes. If you thank you to Anonymous. That's so kind of you. Mark,
that's my new name tag. Is going to say Anonymous.
Happy. Yeah. If you want to support us, hit the donate button. Follow Anonymous. Do it now. That would be great. If you
that's Mr. Anonymous.
Oh, actually,
I do have a secret identity, you know.
I'm actually not surprised, Neil. You continue to surprise me.
Captain Atheist.
Nice.
These are the kind of hijinks you'll see on my show.
Yes. Yeah, get more of that. Go check out Neil's channel. So, and if you want to continue the conversation on after this show, I think Neil, you're not going to make it tonight, but I'll be in the Discord afterwards.
It's early enough where I can make it for about 15 minutes or so. So
perfect. So if you want to come join us, that's at tiny.cc/ACD Discord. That is a fan-run Discord, and we're going to head there after the show for a little bit more chit chat and a little after party. And if you want to just hang out there, there's lots of conversations that go on all throughout the week as well. So you can carry these conversations on there. Another place would be to go to the Facebook group. I am going to wait until it comes up on the screen because I can't say this one without messing it up. It is tiny.cc/FB. Yeah, FBTWG. That is our Facebook group. Also a great place to meet and connect to other people. And then if you want to get a hold of us here at the show at Truth Wanted, you can email us at truth@atheist-community.org. We do try to respond to those emails and get back to you. If you have further questions about our program here or anything like that, you can get a hold of us there. And we do have our special announcement coming up, but before we do that, I just want to take a moment to say hi to the crew cam and say thank you to everybody that helps make this show possible. Our crew is amazing here at Truth Wanted. Oh, no crew cats today. That's okay. We got the crew wolf on the wall back there. Jason's wolf.
Yeah.
Okay, Neil. Before we do our special announcement, do you have any shout outs or places where you want to? I mean, everybody should go watch your show. You could talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. As it was mentioned, I do have a channel here on the YouTubes, and it is Deconversion Stories with Neil, the 604 Atheist, and Mikey Famine, who is my producer. And I actually said, all right, Mikey, you can be part of the show now. So he's actually part of the show now. And
Nice.
and it's a lot of fun. And we always do after parties so that you can come and hang out with us and get to know more of the community, as we always try to promote positive atheism and community. So that's part of what it's about. And also the stories are very important and need to be shared and need to be heard by people who may not know that we're even out there. I've heard from many folks that I've had on my show that I didn't even know there were other atheists. I'm like, really? Of course there would be.
I think it's our goal to make people not have that experience anymore, right? People who like, come out of their different backgrounds, that they right away find other people that are, so that nobody should really go through this alone, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And the only other thing is I will be in Fort Wayne, Indiana at the Better Conference.
Right.
I'm not going to be on the stage or anything, but I will definitely be there giving people hugs and handshakes and stuff if you're down for one. So
yeah, that sounds like an awesome event. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not going to it
26, but
I'm not going to it personally, but I can't wait to hear like how it goes. And I think some of it will be hopefully I think they're going to broadcast some of it. I'm not 100%.
They are going to stream some of it. Yeah.
Great. Perfect. That sounds awesome.
And I promise to stream bomb.
Okay. If you are wanting to hear all the other programs that happen here at the Atheist Community of Austin, I need to mention the AEN podcast, tiny.cc/AEN podcast. That is where all of our shows that are put on by the Atheist Community of Austin are found. So for all those long listening days when you need lots of good content, like when you're flying down to Indiana to go to the Better Conference, that's a great place for all of our stuff. And then finally, Neil, we have our very special announcement to show our audience. So we will get to it now.
The Atheist Community of Austin is proud to join forces with the Secular Student Alliance to bring you Truth Wanted, live from the University of Texas at San Antonio on Friday, May 13th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Central. I will be your host, Objectively Dan, and I am thrilled to have members of the UTSA Secular Student Alliance as my co-hosts. We will also have some special guests in attendance as well. Matt Dillahunty and Jim Barrows from the Atheist Experience, Christy Powell from Secular Sexuality, and Anthony Magnabosco from Street Epistemology International. We will be broadcasting the show in front of a live audience, and we will both be taking questions from the audience as well as phone calls, because as always, we want to know what people believe and why they believe it. We are excited to announce that we will be holding a fundraiser for Secular Student Alliance. This important group empowers secular students to proudly express their identity, build welcoming communities, promote secular values, and set a course for lifelong activism. We are setting a goal for $5,000, as this amount can help them continue their mission for another year, and the ACA will be kicking things off by pledging the first $500. Simply donate to the fundraiser on the YouTube page for this episode, and those proceeds will go to the SSA. So join us Friday, May 13th between 7 to 8:30 p.m. from the Richard Liu Auditorium at University of Texas at San Antonio. But remember that seating is limited, and we will be on a first-come, first-seated basis. If you can't be there in person, be sure to watch it live on the Truth Wanted YouTube channel at tiny.cc/YTTW. Once again, I'm Objectively Dan, and say it with me, always keep wanting the truth.
Wanting the truth. Yay!
Yay! I'm so excited about that. So next week here, we're going to be hosting that, or you'll be able to watch
live.
That. Sorry. Dan's going to be there and all the special guests. So definitely, if you can get down to Texas, if you're there, go to the live show or just catch us here on YouTube. It's an exciting one.
I'm almost debating whether or not I should grab a plane ticket and head down to San Antonio next weekend.
It sounds like a great idea. I wish I could. Yeah. So yeah, that's our big news. We're really excited about that. I hope to see everybody in the audience there. At least in the chat, I'll be there. So, Neil, any last words of wisdom before we say goodnight?
Yeah, there's one thing I always like to say. It's an old G.I. Joe quote. I think it's better to have and not need than need and not have. So keep everything. I'm a total pack rat, so that's why I say that.
All right, I'll take it. I have been your host, ExXtian Erin. Neil, thank you for being my guest tonight. And remember,
my
folks,
pleasure.
Always keep wanting the truth.
Yes.
Good night. Are you actually going to go to Texas?
Watch The Non-Prophets and join the hosts in the live chat Sundays at 3 p.m. Central between the Atheist Experience and Talk Hidden. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.